So go ahead and find a comfortable posture. And just even this instruction, notice any tendency in your mind to hear that and associate it with something you should be, something you have to do, what it's supposed to look like, versus an invitation to listen to your own body and what's needed for you right now, based on your own energy levels, the amount of tension or stress in your body, what's needed. How do you find a comfortable posture in this moment, on this day? Maybe it's leaning back in your chair rather than sitting upright. Maybe it's reclining. So you listen to your own body, feel it out. And then within the posture, we're looking for this balance of ease and vitality. So there's a sense of resting, okay? So this is why we suggest a comfortable posture. What helps you to tune in to a sense of rest? A deep breath. Leaning back, feeling the support of the chair behind you. If you're on a cushion, maybe feeling the ground, feeling the earth beneath you. You feel that steadiness. And then can there be something that softens? Can you even imagine some of the tissues in your body beginning to release and receive the support of the ground? This is very important. Just rest, ease. We're not trying to manufacture something. We're trying to attune to what's needed in the moment. And how do we access this natural capacity that the mind and body has to downshift, to just Saturday morning on retreat, put everything else down. It all can wait. Okay, can you begin to feel a little bit of that movement inside? And so let's just continue to explore this together in your own time, in your own way. How do you soften? How do you settle into a mode of being rather than doing? So, just as I feel into it, what I notice is my head and neck want to turn a little bit. There's some movement that wants to happen to just release some of the tissues around the cervical spine. I notice my jaw relaxing a little bit. Like this kind of tendency to clench a little. I just notice that area in my jaw softens, a little gap between the teeth. Maybe there's a certain thought or emotion that's very present for you, that's kind of impinging on your awareness, something that keeps kind of poking at you a little bit. And so you can just notice that. And then you listen and say, okay, what's needed here to just softly disengage my attention from that? To just let it be without picking it up and without pushing it away. Is it some inner reassurance? Just like a steady hand on your shoulder that says, hey, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Is it more of a decisive thought? Something that comes in with a quality of intention that says, we'll deal with that later. Not now. Or is it perhaps just a quality of surrender, just making space for the truth of how you feel right now? Okay, this is how it is for me right now. I can be with this. I can make some space for this. And then just listening for what feels restful, what feels soothing, easeful in your experience. The out breath. Is it the sense of space around you or sound? Is it the support of the chair or the ground? So this is one movement, one kind of phase of the cycle is the rest, the ease, the settling. And this is balanced with energy, with vitality. So how do you access vitality and energy? It's like the tide that's rising. It's a swell from below that slowly lifts the whole water table, kind of lifts. So you might feel your spine, you might feel the central axis of the torso. You notice the spine being upright. You might notice your in-breath. So these are some of the physiological aspects of energy. Breathing in, being upright. And again, upright is not just vertical, it also means the alignment of the spine. So even when you're reclining, you can tune in to the structure of the spine and how it extends from the base of the tailbone up through the back, into the neck, out the crown of the head. Kind of an energetic line that runs through the spine. There's energy in the body. There's energy in the heart, mind. So here we are together at the beginning of a weekend of practice. So what does that bring up for you? Is there anything uplifting about that? Perhaps some gratitude that you've given yourself the gift of this time. Perhaps you feel a little inspired or kind of energized for the retreat. Ready to learn, ready to apply oneself, willing to be present. So again, just as with the rest, energy of rest and ease, we just listen and sense where and how does energy come into your system. Is it through the heart? Is it through gratitude, willingness, aspiration? Is it through the body, the breath, the posture, the muscles? You find that, you listen for that, see. How do you access energy? So then finally, just kind of in this last part of the meditation, seeing if there can be a little bit of balance between these forces of rest and vitality, of ease and energy. You feel comfortable enough and also alert, engaged. And just notice what that's like to the degree that you're able. A certain kind of poise, a readiness. Nothing needs to change or be fixed or go away. All the conditions inside and outside of your personal and social life can be as they are. But you're now beginning to harness and cultivate a certain way of being within those conditions. A way of being that is present, awake, and responsive. That is deeply connected to and in tune with what is inside and out. So to just reflect on this a little bit, this meditation, just notice for you what was helpful. Anything that wasn't helpful, you just leave it aside. It's not relevant if it's not helpful. What was meaningful or supportive for you, just kind of turn that over in your mind, take it in, so that you internalize it, so that it becomes your own. Just giving yourself a few moments to transition after the meditation. And let the eyes open, kind of look around the room, let your body move a little bit. So I want to say just a few more words just about the approach I'm exploring here this weekend. And then we can have some conversation and shift into another mode together. So these ideas that I'm sharing with you are very alive for me. It's some of what I'm practicing with myself in my own practice. So it's really like an exploration together for me. And so I want to just share briefly like 2 or 3, I don't know what to call them, principles or perspectives that are becoming clearer to me in my own practice around this question of how do we deepen our spiritual practice? How do we progress on the path. And then we can keep these in mind throughout the day, throughout the weekend, these different frameworks or perspectives, okay? So the first is this sense of the context. And so the context is there's a point and a context, right? So there's the sense of you or me, and then what we're living in, the world around us, our inner atmosphere. This is a certain pattern, kind of a point and a context. It's a pattern that shows up in many different ways. Louis Pasteur, the doctor who created germ theory, towards the end of his life, very, very interesting reflection he shared. He said, I'll see if I can remember the French, the original. He said, le microbe n'est rien, le terrain est tout. The microbe is nothing. The landscape is everything. In other words, from like looking at epidemiology, the infectious agent, whether it's a virus, a bacteria, the microbe is not the key thing. It's the overall health of the organism, the landscape that that microbe is sitting in, that matters. So there's so much about this one framework that shows up throughout the teachings that's essential to begin to understand in our practice and observe how it manifests. So another example, I hold up my hand here. You can see my hand, yeah? Okay. So what do you see? You see 5 fingers, you see the hand, right? Do you see the space around my hand? Okay, now you do, right? Did you notice it before? Right? So there's the figure, and then there's the context, the ground that it's sitting in. Okay? Our minds are trained, or I should say habituated, to always notice the figure, the point, what's in the foreground. We don't notice the context necessarily. We don't notice the field that it's sitting within. So this is one thing to begin to attune to and pay attention to in our practice, is not just the thing that we're experiencing or aware of, right? Like, I feel so great today. And we're just consumed with that. Or, you know, God, I feel so heavy and depressed today. I just feel so awful. Just, I don't want to do anything. And that becomes the whole world. What's the context? What's the wider landscape that that's sitting within? Personally, relationally, socially, or collectively? This is also the difference between like the content of our experience and the process of our experience. Again, example, the content being a particular, say, busy week, a busy work week. You've got a lot on your plate. So the content is like all the things you're doing, the appointments, the to-dos, the deadlines. The process, how that ebbs and flows, how it changes, how your own relationship to it changes over the course of the week, how you feel more hopeful and energized at one particular period and then more exhausted another particular period. So this sense of a point and the field that it sits within. This is one frame, this is one way of seeing or knowing that I want us to bear in mind this weekend that we'll explore. Another is a particular cycle of unfolding. So the Buddha talked about many different, he has many different lists pedagogically in his teachings. And there's an arc of development in all of these that parallel each other. Some of them, the words are actually the same. You'll see the same words repeated. Sometimes there are different synonyms for them, but the arc of development is the same throughout all of them. Whether you look at the 5 spiritual faculties, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, the 7 factors of awakening, the sutta on the lawfulness of progress and the 8 parts of that, the 12 links in the chain of dependent, transcendent, dependent arising, the 5 jhanic factors, all of these different maps have the same arc energetically. What is that? Okay, we've already begun exploring it. It's a certain cycle. So one of the clearest and most succinct summaries of the energies in this cycle is in the 5 spiritual faculties. We can use that as kind of a master template to understand how the other teachings are structured. I'm putting it forward because it's simple, because they're just 5, so it's easy to get a feel for it. And then if you start looking at the other teachings, you'll see how they fit into it. And if you haven't studied a lot of Buddhism and you're like, whoa, like 12 and 8, and remember, if it's not relevant, just leave it aside. What's beautiful about these teachings is that the Buddha was describing a natural process, just like a tree growing or a flower blooming. The understanding is that the process of spiritual awakening is like encoded in the DNA of our consciousness. It's there, the instructions, the blueprints are there. Just like the seed of a oak tree contains the blueprints for a massive tree. All that's needed are the right conditions. Enough sun, enough water, the right soil. And then when those conditions are present, those blueprints, that DNA begins to activate and grow. So deepening our spiritual practice, in some sense, is less about kind of like pushing or doing a whole lot, and more about how do we tend to the garden of our heart and mind? How do we create the right conditions to kind of support the unfolding of this natural process of awakening? And there are all these analogies the Buddha uses to describe it. It's like rainwater falling on a hillside and filling all of the cracks and grooves, and then slowly gathering into the gullies, and then building into a stream that flows down into a river that then gathers and flows into the sea. It's that natural. So what is this cycle? What is the development of these energies? So the 5 spiritual faculties, known as the 5 indriya in the Buddha's teaching, which when fully developed, for those who like to geek out on this stuff, become the 5 bala, the 5 powers when they're fully developed, are the first is saddha in the Pali language, the language of the Buddhist text, saddha, which means confidence, trust, aspiration, sense of possibility, often translated as faith, but that word carries so many other connotations and meanings. in the Judeo-Greco-Christian tradition that I prefer other translations like aspiration, conviction, confidence, possibility. Okay, it's a sense of rising energy towards what's possible. Let's call it trust, aspiration. Then energy, virya. From virya, mindfulness, sati. From sati, concentration, stability, collectedness of mind. And finally, wisdom. The more wisdom there is, the more understanding and discernment there is, the more we feel that sense of possibility, conviction, confidence. I can do this. There's something real here for me. Leads to more energy. The more energy we have, we apply it with mindfulness. We pay attention. We steady it. That leads to collectedness, stability of mind. When the mind is stable and clear, we understand. Wisdom. So this is a cycle. The cycle has a certain energetic signature to it. It begins with this lifting. There's a lift inside, the lift of confidence, trust, aspiration. Oh, maybe there's something else here. Maybe I can understand this differently. Maybe I can relate to this differently. Maybe there's something for me to learn here. Maybe. What if? From that sense of possibility, of opening, of willingness in the heart, comes energy. So that lift then leads to the availability of energy. Energy then gets applied through mindfulness. We pay attention. Within mindfulness, we connect with what's happening, we sustain our attention. That continuity of mindfulness, the energy that gets applied, then begins to settle. There's tranquility, there's ease, there's stability or collectedness of mind, samadhi. Things come together, the mind gets stable. We steady it. And then the stability of mind, it's like having a very powerful and clear set of binoculars or microscope that can understand the nature of what's happening. That's wisdom. So this is a second framework to bear in mind, is this cycle of lifting energy, applying it, settling and steadying it. And then that steady energy, we use our intelligence when the mind is vital and clear and stable. The understanding deepens, and that feeds the cycle. Okay, so this is a second framework. So we've got this sense of a point and the context or landscape, this cycle of energy. Maybe that's enough for now. There's one more. I'll just mention it. I won't go into it. There's one more framework I want to explore together, or invite you to begin to pay attention to in your experience. And this is a sense of a polarity, a duality. Breathing in and breathing out. Night and day. Expansion and contraction. This is a universal template. Again, we're talking about templates here, patterns that we can begin to attune to and then harness that energy, guide it, encourage it to this unfolding of awakening.